Madam Speaker. And I thank the member for Gwadja for bringing our attention to one of the Territory's greatest assets. The Territory's nature is world-class. It's one of the reasons Territorians and visitors love this place. But our land and water is suffering under the pressure of poorly regulated agribusiness, industrialisation and flimsy legal protections. For a healthy environment which sustains our communities and economies, we must reject the CLP's plan to let big business trash our environment so that their gas and cotton industry mates can get rich. We've heard this, some might argue, vague and even vaguely jingoistic slogan of restore our lifestyle, but surely there's nothing more central to the Northern Territory's lifestyle than our natural environment. So to restore our lifestyle, surely protecting the environment is the #1 priority. The Greens stand with the community to protect our environment, water and biodiversity, because once it's gone, it's not coming back. All across the Territory, there are incredible places of immense cultural and natural significance. We should be doing absolutely everything we can to protect these places for generations to come. We have such a proud history in the Territory of fighting for our environment. Traditional owners have led and continue to lead historic people-powered campaigns to stand up for country. In 1998, the Mirarr people led a nationwide campaign which galvanised Territorians and brought people from across the country to stand in solidarity with the Mirarr and blockade the construction of a mine that would have devastated their country. We saw over 500 people arrested over the course of an 8-month blockade. And this 8-month blockade under the inspiring and powerful leadership of the Mirarr. And they won, Madam Speaker. And in June this year, the Jabiluka mineral lease was not renewed and the site was added to the Kakadu National Park. This is our proud history here in the Territory of standing up behind traditional owners to protect country and environment. And we have witnessed across the Territory for the best part of a decade a formidable fight to stop fracking from destroying our water, our environment and our climate. Territorians have been fighting in communities and towns from the desert to the sea against this destructive industry, despite their representatives refusing to listen. And only yesterday, Madam Speaker, we saw 2 incredible people go to court and have their charges withdrawn for standing up alongside Larrakia traditional owners to defend Binbara-Lee Point. The formidable Larrakia-led community movement to defend Lee Point has held off the bulldozers from destroying a site of immense cultural and natural significance. I want to acknowledge the Larrakia families who have been working so tirelessly to protect this place and the community who continues to stand alongside them. The community has to fight so incredibly hard to fight for the places they love. The Save Lee Point movement brought hundreds of community members together to stand alongside Larrakia traditional owners to protect a vital wildlife corridor. When community members protested the unlawful clearing of Lee Point, directly denounced by world-renowned zoologist Dr. Jane Goodall, they were dragged through the courts. 19 Lee Point defenders have had to pay thousands of dollars in fines to the NT. Yet, when allegations are made that Defence Housing Australia, a tax-funded statutory body, had breached planning and environmental laws, nothing happens. Investigations are dropped. What frustrates me immensely is that many Territorians give so much to fight for their environment, and yet often they are fighting the decisions that are being made by their own representatives. It is shameless that their representatives would rather work for the benefits of big corporations than their own communities. It's staggering that members of this chamber can witness the community, the camaraderie, the passion of the people they represent and still choose to work against them as attack dogs for corporations. And just briefly on this is why we need to bring more integrity into this place and to government, because the connections between representatives in this place and fossil fuel lobbyists is extreme. I just heard the Environment Minister mention Mr Paul Vogel, the head of the NT-EPA. Because you mentioned him, I must point out that it came out this year that part of his role is to oversee, obviously, the pollution that INPEX pumps out. But we found out this year that Mr Vogel also works for a lobbying firm whose clients include INPEX. So I'm not sure that the Environment Minister mentioning his name gives us any confidence in our environmental protections. We need to do so much better to preserve this incredible place and honour the traditional owners and First Nations people who are doing so much to defend their country. Throughout the election campaign, I spoke to countless people who were voting Green for the first time because they were disgusted with how their government was selling out our environment for the benefit of techs and gas companies and giving our water away to cotton agribusiness. We need stronger nature laws. We need to respect these nature laws, and we certainly should not be watering them down. The Greens have a powerful plan to protect our environment, water and biodiversity, and I put our plan to this chamber. We must establish a Northern Territory Biodiversity Act. We must stop the large-scale clearing in the Territory. This would protect places like Binborough Point and the banks of the Daly River. The Territory has never had laws that explicitly protect intact native vegetation, and we're the only jurisdiction without one. It's time to act. We must create a dedicated NT biodiversity strategy to protect our ecosystems in the long term. We need to fix the Territory's broken water laws. We need to strengthen our Water Act to protect the Territory's rivers, wetlands and aquifers. We will repeat the mistakes of the Murray-Darling Basin if we do not act swiftly. Over-allocating water destroys the environment and local communities. We need to safeguard the Territory's free-flowing rivers and groundwater systems. We also need to establish a Safe Drinking Water Act. Bush communities from the north to the south of the NT are suffering from poor water quality and security. There is currently no legal enforceable minimum standard for drinking water in bush communities. All Territorians have a right to safe and adequate drinking water. We also must revoke the Singleton Station water licence, the largest groundwater licence in our history, that hands over 40 billion litres of water every year for 30 years for free. This ensures and fast-tracks the destruction of our arid ecosystems. Traditional owners are standing strong in opposition to this project, and we must stand with them. And finally, Madam Speaker, the Territory also faces unprecedented threats in the face of climate change. The CSIRO has reported that the top end is projected to be unlivable by 2070 due to blistering humid heat if we continue emitting fossil fuels. And the Red Centre is already vulnerable to scorching summers and bushfires. We saw unprecedented bushfires in the Barkly last year. And I must stress, these predictions of an unlivable climate is what our most reliable modelling is showing. We are not on track as a Territory or the entire country to meet our emission reductions targets. We're not on track. We're going to blow the 1.5 degree increase limit. We're almost about to blow right past it today, and we will enter a period we are totally unprepared for. Others in this chamber might not be listening to scientists, but I am. And instead of tackling these problems, the CLP are pursuing a relentless expansion of fossil fuels in the NT, backed by the gas industry, who are some of their biggest donors. This is absolutely unconscionable. The CLP want to build a petrochemical plant at Middle Arm, destroying our air, our harbour and our climate. They want to... I will pick up on that interjection, actually. I'm so glad you brought that attention to the chamber. Do you have a problem with tradies? Have we got a problem here with people earning something? Oh, my God.
Okay, order.
The truth is that I was a tradie, my partner was a tradie, and if you've got something about people that were not born with a silver spoon in their mouth and know how to work hard for a living, that's on you.
Okay, let's just stop.
I'm assuming, what am I assuming? They're calling out interjections over here.
Stop the interjections. Please take your seat, Member for Nycliffe. All discussion and debate goes through me. If you want to say something, say it to me. We'll cease the interjections and we'll listen to the member for Nycliffe in silence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The CLP want to build a petrochemical processing plant at Middle Arm, destroying our air, our harbour and our climate. They want to put communities out in Palmerston at risk of cancer by increasing the carcinogens in the air they breathe by processing gas only 3 kilometres where they live. I would hope that the members here who represent those areas around Palmerston are concerned for the health of their constituents, which will undoubtedly be negatively impacted from the pollution from Middle Arm. The CLP also want to ruin the Elizabeth River jetty fishing area by building 5 export jetties and increasing shipping in our harbour. Local fishers and the tourism industry are furious about these plans. Apparently the CLP supports local business but not tourism business, one of our largest employers. But it doesn't have to be this way.
Okay, let's stop the interjections.
But it doesn't have to be this way. The Territory has the potential to not just rebuild, but to rapidly expand our economy by investing in renewables. This will meet the needs of current and future generations, while also delivering a fair and just transition for existing energy industry workers and keeping electricity in public hands. Instead of lobbying for handouts to the gas industry, we could instead use that public money to invest in a renewables industry that could power our economy. Just like South Australia, who have signed a renewable energy transformation agreement with the federal government, who will underwrite their ambitions to become 100% renewable by 2027. 2027. I don't want to hear a single person in this chamber saying that the technology isn't here yet. It is here. We are absolutely failing our environment, which will affect every single Territorian. At risk is our beloved Territory lifestyle, our recreational activities like hiking, hunting, fishing and camping. At risk is our tourism sector and our economy. And at risk is our drinking water and our communities. At risk is the very city we live in. We have the most spectacular natural environment in the world, with incredible native savanna and some of the world's last free-flowing rivers, vast desert landscapes and breathtaking beaches. We should be doing all we can to preserve this. We must not let this place become a sacrifice zone for the gas industry. It is in our power to do this, and we owe it to future generations. The Labor government took steps in the right direction with their Territory Water Plan and the NT climate change response towards 2050 policy, but it is far from enough. Indeed, the NT's mismanagement of our resources made national news with an explosive Four Corners investigation into the unlawful water grabs made by private cotton industry without oversight or repercussions. The opportunity presented to the CLP government is to commit to not undermine the legislative and regulatory regime of environmental protections developed under the Labor government as a minimum, then to extend and strengthen them even further and commit to alternative pathways of economic growth. As a self-proclaimed economic savvy government focusing on rebuilding the Territory, the CLP should not be sold on the economic fiction that trading our environment for cash can result in long-term prosperity for the Territory. It is a lazy, uncreative and dangerous approach to economic growth. And most Territorians I speak to simply don't buy it. They can see these foreign-owned gas companies coming to take our gas, take our government subsidies, and they see that they're not paying tax. They're essentially giving our gas away for free and destroying our environment in the process. The Australian Institute notes that NT drivers pay 30 times more in vehicle registration than the gas industry pays in royalties. And gas development has few economic benefits, they say, beyond those that flow to the gas industry itself. They are a systematic non-payer of tax that crowd out other industries. People can see these foreign-owned companies coming to take our gas, take our government subsidies. Sorry, I've just repeated that there. Territorians understand that the environment is both precious and indispensable. This is why hundreds of people turned out to protest out the front of this House yesterday. People are terrified of the ramifications of the Territory Coordinator proposal. Our environmental legislation, as weak as it is, exists for a reason. If the CLP wants to circumvent protections, what's the point of any of it? Why even bother pretending that you care about our lifestyle, that you care about our tourism industry? People are terrified because they can see the Territory Coordinator is entirely designed to roll out the red carpet to gas companies and large agribusiness like cotton. We saw scientists in their hundreds unanimously condemn the previous government for greenlighting fracking. Fracking and the expansion of fossil fuel projects are a death sentence for our future. That is the truth. And the scientific community is beyond horrified and distressed that a bunch of people with a Year 10 science education think they have the understanding to ignore the evidence of climate change. The actions of this... Would you like a moment there, Laurie? No?
Order. Let's not focus on each other. Let's focus on...
So, the actions of the CLP last night, rushing to remove a reference to Human Rights Act in sessional orders, have demonstrated the contempt for Territorians they are willing to show. I hope they don't stoop to that level again when it comes to our precious environment. So, Madam Speaker, I urge them not to take a single step back from the protections that are already in place. Safeguarding the NT's water and environment is non-negotiable. Anything less is a failure to lead and a betrayal of the people who call this place home. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I would just like to say that I spend my time here in this chamber listening patiently and quietly to people's speeches who I have feelings about too, and I don't interrupt. So I would expect the same respect back in return.
Indeed. Member for Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to speak on the environmental protections motions today, and I thank the member for Goja for bringing this important issue to the chamber. Everyone has a responsibility to look after country, whether you are First Nations custodian on the land, whether you call this country home, or whether you are a tourist and visit as a guest. We all have the responsibility to look after country. I am concerned by the visitors to beaches outside Darwin where four-wheel drive on the beaches and damage the turtle nest and impact our beach environment. I am concerned by the increase in foreign vessels coming to our coast to steal trepang. I am concerned about illegal commercial fishing in the intertidal zone. I am concerned by the increase to tourists choosing to wander off designated pathways, roads, or take into waterways to islands where there are sacred sites and areas that are protected. We all have a responsibility to look after the country, but we all need greater resource and powers from government for rangers and TOs to patrol and look after our country, and waterways to enforce the laws. Because these are crimes happening out on country which are not being addressed. Our country is not boundless possible, and there are rules and laws which must be applied with the same vigor that the government are chasing crime here in town. Madam Speaker, in August last year, the ABC reported 2 workers' accounts of spraying contaminated water into the ground for 5 days in the Tamarine resource mine. These big risks are happening in the Beetaloo sub-basin, but we hear little about the risk. I am not the only person who says no to fracking. There are many people in the Northern Territory who say no, and many people in remote areas who do not want fracking on our country. Madam Speaker, many First Nations people now know that we are and care for country. The country will care for us. When Yolngu look at the country, we can see ourselves in the land. The phrase, you cannot get blood out of a rock or stones, does not make sense to Yolngu, because we can see our blood running through very part of our natural surroundings. Rocks, trees, the rivers. This is who we are. We are connected to land, and it is part of us. The Yolngu people, we know that we come from the land and we will return to the land. Our spirits and our ancestors' spirits are within the land and water. There are many stories of people getting sick, and there are countries is sick because our spirit is connected to our country. And this happened to my father, who had become unwell when bad fire was burning on his country. And when the fire was put out, he became well again. This happened when he was old, and his spirit was coming closer to his country again, so he could feel the damage of the fire in his country and his body. This is how we connect to country. It is an extension of ourselves to it as our kin. So it is very serious and dangerous to damage country. Madam Speaker, over many years I have met with the members of the Ngurinji Aboriginal Corporation to hear their concern about fracking in the Beetaloo Basin. Like me, they do not want fracking on their country and have been fighting this for years. Just recently, they have put out a media release about the government push for the territory coordinator. Kingley Elder and Chair Samuel Kanama Sandy said, we shouldn't hurry things just to frack and can push more money into the pockets. We need to protect our water, our plants and animals, and governments need time to make sure and protect projects won't do damage. The territory is a beautiful place. Traditional owners have a responsibility to protect country and water to their families and everyone who lives here. The new government should be thinking about how to create better housing, health and clean energy for our communities, and real jobs that don't involve digging into our country. This is all about money, 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 and opening the door for big companies to do what they want to here. Madam Speaker, I share their concerns about the territory coordinator who has the power to say yes to mining and other activities, even though the custodians for the country may say no, and the activities themselves may be harmful to our environment. The United Nations Special Rapporteur gave a statement in September last year stating that recent scientific reports suggest that the temperatures in the Northern Territory could make the region inhabitable for humans, despite the pro-chemical and oil and gas industries lining up measure projects. In the region, this threatens to make Darwin and the region a climate change sacrifice zone. Madam Speaker, the Northern Territory should not be a sacrifice zone, and we need to be careful that a territory coordinator does not sacrifice the environment for the sake of the economy. First Nations people do not want to become climate refugees because our country is no longer inhabitable. Such displacement would also damage would also endanger the future of our cultures. Madam Speaker, I call on this government to consider the legacy that they leave the Northern Territory. You are talking a lot about the legacy that the last government has left, but what will be your legacy? Will it be environmental and cultural destruction? Madam Speaker, everyone here in this chamber, everyone who lives in the NT, we all have a responsibility to look after the land and care for country. And that should be the priority for this government. And there should be a priority to work in partnership with First Nations people to ensure that we are meeting the responsibility of looking after country and protecting everyone's future. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Johnston, you've got the call.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I welcome the opportunity to talk to the Chamber about the importance of our environment, and I thank the member for Godger for bringing this motion. I wasn't born here, but I've been incredibly grateful to live here for the past 30 years. The richness, the diversity, the beauty and the uniqueness of our environment is unparalleled. Like many have said here, my own life is very bound up with the amazing environment, from walking in Kakadu, exploring remote Arnhem Land in the desert, or swimming in my local Gurumbai, Rapid Creek. I love and care for our environment at a very personal level. And our job here in this chamber is to look after our environment, look after the NT and look after the people here, the people and the environment that we all love. So I stand before you today to address a matter of significant concern to people in my community that I think threatens the very essence of our democratic processes and the strong environmental protections that we've worked hard to establish. The proposed creation of a Territory Coordinator is, at its core, an undemocratic move that will undermine the checks and balances we have in place to ensure transparency, accountability and responsible decision-making. This is not just a policy shift, this is a direct challenge to the democratic principles that allow every Territorian to have a say in how their environment is managed and how their resources are used. The decision to centralise power in the hands of one person, an unelected bureaucrat, together with the Chief Minister, has serious implications for our system of government. We risk sidelining the voices of local communities, businesses, experts and environmental stakeholders and landowners, traditional owners, who have a right to participate in decisions that will impact their lives, their businesses, their environment. This is not how democracy works. Democracy is about shared responsibility, consultation and transparency. The proposed coordinator will bypass the rigorous processes we have in place to ensure that policies reflect the needs and values of the people that we're all meant to serve, and instead create a situation where decisions are made in closed rooms with winks to each other, without proper public scrutiny, without input from those who will bear the consequences of those decisions. This is a direct contradiction to the principles of open governance and accountability that I've heard this government commit to. The draft bill includes a schedule of 32 laws that could be overridden by the Chief Minister or Territory Coordinator, and many of these laws have nothing to do with the environment. They relate to economy, they relate to health and safety provisions that are designed to keep us all safe. I'm unclear why we need to override these laws. For example, the Nuclear Waste Transport, Storage and Disposal Prohibition Act of 2004, or the Transport of Dangerous Goods by Road Act. That means the Chief Minister, why does the Chief Minister, need powers to exempt projects from these laws? And if the Chief Minister can assure us that they won't be or the Territory Coordinator won't be overriding these precautions, why do those laws need to be included in the schedule of the bill? The proposed role of the Territory Coordinator will dilute the expertise and effectiveness of the agencies and regulatory bodies that have been established to protect our environment. These agencies are staffed by experts and professionals who have years of experience and a deep understanding of the challenges we face. And the role of the Coordinator will undermine their ability to do their jobs properly and may lead to a weakening of our environmental safeguards. So the challenge this proposal poses is not only to our democratic values but also to the integrity of the environmental protections that served us so well. And these are critical to managing the impacts of mining, to preserving our water and preparing for the challenges of climate change. These protections are not just symbolic, they're essential to our Territory's future. The Environment Protection Act, the Climate Change Response Towards 2050 Policy and the Territory Water Plan are not simply pieces of legislation. They're the foundation of our approach to sustainable development. These are not tools to be tampered with or undermined for political expediency. They are tools that ensure we can balance the needs of growth with the need to protect the unique environment that defines us. Concentrating power in one office with the authority to override or bypass critical environmental protections, risking compromising the very laws that protect our land, our water and our climate. This proposal doesn't simply challenge our environmental safeguards. As I've said, it challenges the integrity of the democratic processes that allow us to craft, implement and use these safeguards in a transparent and accountable way. Feedback that I've heard from people in my community is overwhelmingly negative and concerned about the centralisation of power, including people who come up to me and say, I support fracking, I support land clearing, but I do not support this proposal. People are saying to me, how can we trust the integrity of the consultation process if an interim coordinator has already been appointed to set up the office? How can we trust the government is actually listening to our concerns while it is already actioning the office and is preempting results of the consultation? How can we trust the government when they put someone in that position who we know worked for 10 years for a company that we understand that this bill is set up to advantage? It's a good question, or they're good questions. What we're being asked to accept is a shift away from a system that values public input, community engagement, expert advice and protecting our environment. Instead, we're being asked to trust a single individual to make far-reaching decisions without the same level of scrutiny or oversight that we all deserve. This is not democracy. This is not good governance. I want to thank the member for Nightcliff for moving the Gamblergrass motion today and for sharing the stories of community working together to protect our precious environment, places like Jabiluka and Lee Point. And I'm proud to say that tomorrow I'll be presenting this Parliament a petition for Lee Point from traditional owners to return Lee Point to them. I'll be presenting that to this chamber tomorrow. Madam Speaker, I'm committed to both protecting our democracy and protecting our environment. I want to ensure that our environmental laws remain strong, clear and effective. I put on record that I will not support a proposal that concentrates power in the hands of one person at the expense of our democratic rights and at the health of our environment. Thank you.